Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely incredible modern fantasy masterpiece. Most epic tales, they focus on the grand adventure, right? The grueling battles, the impossible odds, the triumphant defeat of the ultimate evil. But what happens after the credits roll? What happens when the parade ends, the adrenaline fades, and the heroes just kind of have to go back to living their regular lives? Today, we are exploring a story that focuses heavily on exactly that, the quiet, often profound aftermath of a legendary 10-year quest. Okay, let's jump right into this incredibly unique, kind of jarring premise. Picture this. You've got your classic RPG party. The hero Himmel, the degenerate priest Hyder, the tanky dwarf warrior Eisen, and our protagonist, the elven mage frieren. They set off, they fight for a decade, and against all odds, they actually win. The Demon King is dead, his reign of terror is over, but rather than showing us this epic saga, the narrative just completely bypasses the typical action tropes. The group comes home to statues and celebrations, and then they just go their separate ways. It asks a much deeper, more contemplative question. When the defining moment of your life is over, how do you spend the rest of it? Now, to really understand why this aftermath is so important, we have to look closely at frieren herself and her fundamental nature as an elf. In this world, elves are incredibly rare and practically immortal. I mean, she'd already lived for over 1,000 years before she even joined the hero's quest. Because of this massive biological difference, she perceives time, and by extension, relationships, in a completely detached way compared to the human beings around her. This timeline brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of that detachment. Frieren lived for a millennium before meeting Himmel and the gang. The epic life-or-death quest to save the world, it only took 10 years. As our source material points out with this hilarious spot-on analogy, to Frieren, a 10-year quest felt about as long as it takes waiting on hold for customer service to dispute a gas bill. Literally, it was an errand, something she did on the way to the store. So after they win, she simply pieces out, goes abroad to study magic for 50 years, totally assuming her friends are just chilling, waiting for her to get back. But as we know, human lives really don't work like that. Section 1. A sudden wave of regret. So, decades pass and Frieren finally returns. But she's immediately hit with a reality she intellectually knew but just never emotionally processed. She gets back just in time to see Himmel, the great hero of their party, pass away from old age. He's laid to rest with all the gravity a world-renowned savior deserves. And it's right there, at his funeral, that Frieren just breaks. She is struck by this sudden, devastating wave of realization. Her friends didn't just put their lives on pause. They lived, they aged, and now they're dying. She realizes that because she brushed off her lifespan, she never truly invested in their lives. She worked well with them, sure, she remembers them, but she didn't actually know them. And as the dirt is tossed on Himmel's grave, she is absolutely crushed by the regret of the time she completely squandered. This concept builds a profound bridge right to our own reality. Frieren's fictional regret perfectly mirrors real-world grief. Losing someone completely reframes our perception of time and missed opportunities. Dates and years suddenly become way less important than the specific moments we shared, or those missed chances to just catch up or take a trip together. Time is relative, right? The passage of years only really matters based on the meaningful human events that fill them. Frieren learns the hard way that putting stock solely in the passage of years is a pretty hollow way to live. Section 2. The New Game Plus Journey. Now, obviously, Frieren can't change the past, but the quote-unquote curse of her long life actually gives her a unique blessing, a second chance, a brand new journey. If you're a gamer, you'll totally get the analogy our source uses here. It's a new game plus. That's when you finish a game story, but then you start over from the very beginning, carrying over all your accumulated stats and wisdom so you can actually do the things you missed the first time around. Frieren begins retracing the exact same geographical steps of her old 10-year quest, but this time with a new party made up of her old friends' young apprentices. Now, on paper, her stated mission on this new journey is to collect old grimoires and magic spells. But come on, that's just an excuse. Her real, overarching mission is actively completing all those emotional side missions she entirely skipped on her first playthrough. This time around, she is putting a real, concentrated focus on knowing, caring for, and loving her new companions, Fern and Stark. She isn't just traveling with them, she's desperately trying to build a genuine community with them. Section 3, From Aloof to Caring Mentor. We can actually see exactly how drastically her day-to-day behavior has evolved by looking at this comparison. In flashbacks to her first journey, past Frieren is incredibly aloof, very cold and pragmatic.
Her attitude was essentially, what's the monster? Okay, it's dead, job's done, I'm going back to reading my spellbook in the corner. But present frieren? Totally different story. Present frieren is highly anxious over simply finding the perfect birthday gifts for Fern and Stark. She completely lacks confidence in these interpersonal moments because, well, she's never had to care like this before. It is such an incredibly sweet, genuine attempt at empathy.
What really makes this transformation so captivating, though, is that she is profoundly imperfect at it. You'd think someone with 1,000 years of worldly knowledge on her passport would be impeccably mature, right? Not even close. She fumbles personal relationships constantly. She'll sleep all day if her apprentices actually let her. She's lazy about daily chores, and she keeps a living space so messy it literally drives Fern crazy. Her newfound attempt at empathy is just endearingly messy, which really proves that having all the book smarts in the world absolutely does not grant you emotional intelligence.
Section 4. Guided by Himmel's Memory.
So how exactly does an emotionally stunted elf learn to become a caring mentor? Well, the answer lies in the lingering ghost of the hero, Himmel. Structurally, the story actually reinforces his inescapable impact by rarely using a traditional calendar. Instead, it marks time and new locations entirely around his passing. You'll constantly see text flash on the screen reading, X years after the death of the hero Himmel. He is literally the fixed point in Frieren's universe. He's the lens through which she now measures her entire life. Through flashbacks, we start to see exactly who Himmel was behind those legendary stone statues. The public knows him as the guy who killed the Demon King, but Frieren remembers his unseen actions. He had this giant heart for his party, and more specifically, he deeply loved Frieren. He looked out for her, he defended her, and he continually, gently pursued her affection. He offered her this profound kindness that back then, she was simply too detached and numb to receive. And these flashbacks, they don't just function as exposition or lore dumps. They are a direct tool for present-day empathy. Almost every single time Frieren faces a complicated social situation with her new party, a conflict, a moral dilemma, a moment where someone just needs comfort, she dives into our memories. A flashback of Himmel's advice or a quiet moment of his kindness bubbles up and directly informs how she should react right now, in the present. He basically acts as her ghost of hero past, continually guiding her from beyond the grave. So the absolute crucial point is this. Frieren's entire present-day evolution from an aloof immortal to a caring mentor is a direct, heartbreaking tribute to Himmel. She realizes decades too late how much he really cared for her, and the guilt of her past indifference drives her to pay his kindness forward. She isn't trying to live up to his legendary status as a monster slayer. No, she's trying valiantly to live up to the everyday compassion he showed to the people around him, even when there wasn't a crowd watching. It's just an astonishingly emotionally intelligent character arc. And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway from Frieren's transformation. Look, we don't have 1,000-year lifespans. We don't get the luxury of a new game plus to correct our regrets with a fresh cast of characters. Frieren's journey serves as a really powerful, beautiful mirror for our own fleeting time. It leaves us with a question we all need to ask ourselves. Are we actively valuing the human connections in our own party right now while we still actually have them? Or are we waiting for the quest to be over before we realize what truly mattered? Something to think about as you go through your day. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.